before Bo was a UFC fighter, he was a wrestler. Let's go through the entire journey of you as a wrestler. You started at what, 6 years old?
Yeah, like 5, 6 years old. So just a young little guy.
And did you hit the ground running? You loved the sport, or was there any sort of time where you were like, I don't want to do this?
So, it actually kind of starts even before that, before I was born. My grandpa was a collegiate wrestler, wrestling coach. And so, he kind of started the family lineage of wrestling and stuff. And then my dad wrestled his whole life and became a wrestling coach. And so when I was born, it was like, I think I was born in January. The state tournament, he was a high school coach. The high school state tournament's generally in March. So at 2 months old, I'm like at the high school state wrestling tournament, so it was kind of just something that was in my blood.
Sure.
And fortunately for me, I just loved it. I was just, I played all sports growing up, football, track, baseball, did swimming. Like I did everything growing up, but I always really gravitated towards wrestling and identified with it. I think because of the challenge and the individual aspect of it, where it's just you going out there, feeling the pressure. And so I think that first starting, I just naturally was really inclined. I played all sports, but wrestling was always more serious to me. And I started setting goals and watching film and really committing and being disciplined in my sport very young. And it was something that I'm really grateful. I'm grateful I did that. I'm also grateful that I was able to have such a solid relationship with my dad, because, you see the father-son dynamic of coach athlete, and a lot of times there's a lot of strain on that. But I always felt like it was my choice to wrestle and to compete. And I think he did a really good job of allowing me to make decisions. And hey, like, I wrestled hundreds of matches a year on average, but there was always a conversation being had of, hey, do you want to compete? Or, do you want to do this tournament? Do you want to do that tournament? And 99% of the time it was yes. If there was a no here and there, maybe once in a while it was, okay, no, we're done. We're going to do something else. And I also, like I said, had other sports that I would play that kind of supplemented. And so I wasn't like 365 days a year at 8 years old, like just boom, 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 wrestling. It was like, football season. I was still practice here and there wrestling, but I was like in football, and that was beneficial as well. So it wasn't until my junior year of high school, I was maybe 16, 17, that I was like wrestling. I'm full committed to it. That's when I stopped playing football and got to the point where I was gonna, I'm doing this in college. I always had Olympic and collegiate aspirations, and I knew I was gonna do it, but now it was like a more of a conscious like decision. My time and what I'm doing every day is gonna reflect that even more so than it had been. I was always very committed, but again, doing other things as well, and kind of just being, I wouldn't say I was a normal kid because I sacrificed a lot and spent a lot of time wrestling, but there were still things pulling me in other directions where I wasn't zoom focused on one thing, which I think is healthy. I don't think that there should be 8-year-old kids like zoom focused on one thing entirely. So yeah, kind of coming through high school, I had a lot of success, as a kid and through high school and stuff. Was recruited very highly, and then decided to go to Penn State, which was the premier program. They had won national titles, had individual national champions at my weight class. The head coach, Cale Sanderson, was my favorite wrestler growing up and a guy I looked up to a ton. And looking back, was easily one of the best decisions I made, was just being part of that team and that community and learning a lot of wrestling, but more so learning things about character, how to be a man, what type of things are important to me, what type of things I should be valuing. And just kind of from there had a lot of success in college, and was maybe halfway through college where I was like, I really love wrestling. I don't know how long I'm going to compete in wrestling, but I'm even more interested in fighting. Like,
so this is interesting.
Yeah.
You're touching on a lot of things, and not to interrupt you or slow you down, because we want to hear all about it.
Yeah.
But there's, some of that high school experience that a lot of people don't understand does lay the groundwork for where you are today, right? You, not only did you start, as you said, 8 years old, you had a father, well vested in the right kind of teacher and leader for you. But in high school, what age would you say it clicked And what was it, freshman year or sophomore year? What was the moment that it said, yeah, I'm going to do this?
Right.
You quit football as a junior?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my junior year. So I think as a kid, oftentimes you don't really, there's a lot that you're unaware of, right? Like there's a lot of things happening and you're kind of just being a kid, right? So for me, I always spent way more time on wrestling and way more time studying film and way more time competing than anything else. You know, really, I don't think there's anyone in the entire world that at 27 years of age has watched more wrestling than me. Like there's no chance. I don't believe that. And so that's something I've been committed to since a young kid. I remember being like 7 or 8, going to wrestling tournaments, and my parents, we had like this van with like a TV in it, right? And my sisters would want to watch, Lion King or some Disney movie, and I would make them. We had this DVD set of the best Olympic trials matches for wrestling, and I'd be like, no, that's what we're putting in.
At 8 years old, you're watching film.
Yes, like watching film, studying it, like this type of thing, and so I was always I hadn't made a conscious decision that I'm not going to do these other things. I'm just going to focus on wrestling, but it was building to that point.
Sure.
And then when I got to be older and kind of understand what needed to happen in order to achieve what I wanted to achieve, then I had to make decisions that reflected that. And so quitting football and sacrificing even more than, because I already trained, 3 times a day, and I was grinding like kids and giving up a lot that most kids weren't even considering at that time. But then it was like, hey man, if I really want to do this, like I got to double down and dedicate myself even more. And so I would say like the first truly conscious decision that it didn't have to do with my dad, it didn't have to do with anybody else, was choosing to not play football anymore and just pursue wrestling, because nobody told me I had to do that. My dad wasn't like, hey, you need to do this. He actually was like a little sad because he played college football. He was like, oh, you're not going to like play through high school? I was like, Dad, I'm called like this wrestling. This is what I'm going to do.
Wrestling prodigy, right?
Yeah.
You just knew that. I mean,
hey guys, if you enjoyed this clip, be sure to check this one out right here because it's just as good or maybe even better. Cheers.